Interpreters work in order to remove any element that hinders communication and comprehension. During the post-war period, and especially the Nuremberg trials, interpreting was subject to a considerable improvement. However, this activity was established a long time ago. Several experts have shown how interpreting has always existed. Since mankind has been able to communicate through oral and written codes, there has been the need for a middle person, a sort of bridge between different languages and cultures. The first proof that testifies the existence of the interpreter goes back to ancient Egypt. In fact, a sepulchral sculpture shows a person with two heads facing opposite directions. According to experts, that would represent the process of linguistic mediation. Modern interpreting was born in the early 90s. There was an increase in the interest in different forms of oral translation, and now we know that the expression linguistic mediation does not only refer to conference interpreting. It also regards liaison and community interpreting, that includes the figures of medical, judicial, and court interpreters. Although community interpreting, also called public service interpreting, is the oldest one, it is often associated with the 20th century and in particular to welfare states. Community interpreting and the demand for linguistic mediation in the social, legal, and medical field go hand in hand with the coexistence of different languages and cultures, closely linked to globalization and migratory flows. It is clear how the increase in the number of foreign people on a certain territory leads to remarkable changes from a linguistic and social point of view. A great number of foreigners also leads to an increase in the demand for linguistic assistance, because they do not always have a good level of education and are not familiar with the national language. Since 1970, in many states there has been the need to reorganize the society for a complete integration. Within the legal field, it is crucial to offer linguistic assistance to those who do not speak and/or understand the language, in order to safeguard their right to defense. A person involved in a legal process who does not speak and/or understand the language has the right to linguistic assistance. In this way, he or she has the possibility to understand what is happening in the courtroom and to speak the mother tongue in order to express thoughts properly. This right does not only refer to foreign people, but also those Italians with a low level of education, illiterate people, or those belonging to a particular ethnic group or non-recognized linguistic minority. The metaphor of a battle is often used to describe what happens during trials. Language is the weapon, and when the person involved is disarmed because he or she does not know the language, the interpreter contributes to a fair trial. Interpreters who work in the legal sector have a great responsibility. In fact, the foreigner's freedom and defense depends also on their performance that can influence the outcome of the trial positively or negatively. Especially in this kind of setting, not only does the interpreter have to consider the linguistic factor, it is also crucial that culture is taken into consideration. For example, the differences between legal systems, codes of conduct, religions, and traditions. The aim of the activity of interpreting is removing any element that hinders communication and comprehension. During a trial in particular, the interpreter helps the defendant and promotes in this way the communication between all parts involved, judges, lawyers, and witnesses. This role is very delicate, and for this reason, the interpreter is given all the documents in order to be as prepared as possible. Interpreters should be given adequate information. The lack of information could compromise the communication during the process. In order to achieve a good translation, an interpreter has to be precise, clear, exhaustive, and faithful to the original text. It is important that all the elements are conveyed without omissions, additions, or vagueness. For example, even curse words obscene language, different meanings of the same word, hesitations, and doubts have to be expressed, as all these elements have a great influence on the legal process. In order to properly describe the activity of court interpreting, it is good to mention the differences between court and legal interpreters. Legal interpreters are paid by lawyers and agencies that ask for their services. They are not required to be qualified, they are not monitored, and they work in a rather informal setting. As far as court interpreters are concerned, they are paid by administrative offices or the tribunal. They need a qualification, their performance is usually monitored, and they work in very formal and stressful conditions. In Italy, there is not a national professional register for interpreters and translators, and legal and court interpreters are included in the registers of experts and consultants who work for the tribunal. In order to be accepted, interpreters and translators have to apply for admission at the tribunal, where the candidate's qualification is examined. Foreign citizens can also apply to be enrolled on the register. However, it is not compulsory. Not many countries have a professional register for interpreters and translators, but there are several associations both at a national and international level. The Fédération Internationale de Traducteurs, the European EULIDA, and the Italian AITI, AIC, Asso Interpreti, and Unitalia. Court interpreters' vocational training is fundamental. In courtrooms, they deal with many different situations and topics, such as bankruptcy, drugs trade, corruption, arms dealing, cybercrime, terrorism, and money laundering. However, most of the time, they do not have a specific qualification, and they come to know the topic of the trial just before going to the courtroom. This happens because of the confidentiality of preparatory inquiries. As far as the interpreter's vocational training is concerned, it is still problematic, especially in our country. First of all, interpreters should be aware of their role and their responsibilities, and should have a deep knowledge of the language, the culture, and legal systems. The problem is that they are often not properly trained or not trained at all. In fact, in Italy, public service interpreting, that includes healthcare, public security, legal institutions, departments of immigration, and social services, has been neglected for a long time, while in other countries, the importance of a proper training for the assurance of a good interpretation has been acknowledged. All professionals have to respect a code of ethics, whose principles contribute to offering a good service. Interpreting and translation are not exceptions. In fact, a professional interpreter is more likely to perform high-quality interpreting. The mediator is obliged to carry out a good and faithful translation. There are several codes, guidelines, and lists of professional qualifications on the activity of interpreting in general, the quality of the performance, and the role of the interpreter. There are few countries where the profession of the legal interpreter is recognized and well regulated. Italy is still in a rather confusing state. However, in 2012, the lower house of the Italian Parliament approved a law that regulates all professional associations not organized with orders and guarantees the quality of all professional services, the membership, and full recognition to more than 3 million professionals.